I often get told, do not get married. I was told that by my father, some friends, and other random men I have met. So many of them give me that advice. It is frankly alarming. What is going on with some of you? I have never been married, just in relationships. Story 1. Marry if you know she is worth marrying. Marriage is not something to take lightly. Edit. Surprised by the upvotes. Last time I said marriage is something big and binding, I got downvoted by people who claim divorces should be a normal thing. Story 2. Marry for the right reasons and the right person. I have been married for 15 years with 3 children and cannot imagine a day without my wife. We have changed since the day we met, but we are more in love than ever. Intimacy is still amazing. Anyone who says otherwise married the wrong person for the wrong reasons. They did not see the signs before the wedding. Story 3. It is honestly a bit dramatic. Get married with proper prenuptial or postnuptial agreements, if applicable, and proper clauses. Marry someone with a moral compass similar to yours, a similar understanding of financial literacy, and a similar or compatible love language. That reduces about 70% of any problems from the beginning. Story 4. People have had bad experiences being married. You also have to realize that most happily married men are not on here talking about it. Those who go through really bad situations tend to be more vocal. In other words, it seems like more men dislike marriage. 50% of marriages fail. That means half of marriages do not end in separation. The remaining 50% represents a smaller number of men, as this includes people who marry multiple times and get divorced. Story 5. I think most marriages start with good intentions. But everyone changes throughout their lives. Sometimes it is no one's fault that people change. I am often glad I did not get the tattoo I wanted at 20 years old because it would be inappropriate for me now. It is when you get past the honeymoon period that you find the idiosyncrasies people have, and that is when you know if you are compatible. Story 6. They don't mean don't get married, but basically, don't get married to the wrong person or until you are ready. Many people do not have the emotional maturity to get married but still get married. This not only leads to an unstable dynamic in the marriage but also causes issues when dealing with multiple factors required to make the marriage work. It is up to you. If you think or know that you can handle the responsibility of another person along with handling other responsibilities in life, then you can get married. But if you think that might be too much to handle right now, then wait. Story 7. What confuses me is people who are unwilling to get married but are willing to have a child with someone. Having a child with someone is a much bigger commitment than marriage. Story 8. Others have bad experiences. That does not mean you will too. Comes down to what you want. If you are in a fantastic relationship with a woman you trust, and with a woman who associates with people you trust, and you are looking to build a life together with a home and a family, then marriage is absolutely a good thing. But if you have any doubts about marrying her, then wait until those doubts are resolved. Story 9. How were their marriages? I am guessing not good. Do not marry someone just for the sake of getting married. It is not a box to check. But if you find someone you love and want to spend your life with, marry them wholeheartedly. Story 10. I think it is generally good advice. Marriage is a huge deal, and too many people enter into it far too casually. People, not just men, should think long and hard about why they want to get married, beyond it being the next step of the relationship or the worst reason, because they are in love. In the same vein, people take divorce far too casually also. As soon as they are unhappy or they are not having the amount of sex they want, they pull the ripcord. But that is not commitment. That is not covenant. In what could easily be a 40, 50, maybe even a 60 or 70-year relationship, there are going to be far more days when the person you marry gets on your last nerve, or needs something from you when your emotional battery is at 10% and you do not have it to give. In these moments, do you have the patience and capacity to respond to your spouse with kindness, patience, love, calmness, and clear communication? Or are you going to yell, scream, curse at them, punch walls, hurl insults, belittle, ignore, and give the silent treatment? If you cannot commit to the former for life, maybe marriage is not for you. Because all you are doing is delaying an inevitable divorce and damaging your savings and retirement preparations. All to say that you tried it and it did not work out. While marriage has the potential to be one of the most meaningful experiences of your life, it is also likely to be one of the hardest. Unless you have very specific reasons why you want to marry and not just be in a relationship, you probably should not do it. Story 11. What is going on with some of you? I have never been married, but I have been in relationships. Just list the pros and cons and decide for yourself when the time comes. Story 12. If you are in a healthy relationship and in love, not getting married does not seem like good advice. I would not say it is bad, but it is not good either. If you both want it, do it. Story 13. Yeah, I am not listening to those people. The "I hate my wife" type of complaining is unhelpful. If you are not planning to marry your partner, you are with the wrong person. Story 14. There is no single answer. Some men fear commitment. Some believe marriage disadvantages them. Others think women will leave at some point. Some hold negative attitudes toward women because of past hurt and generalize that to all women. Some married due to expectations but chose the wrong partner for themselves. The list goes on. In reality, the only opinion that matters is yours and your partner's. Do you want to get married? If yes, get married. If not, don't, but be honest with your partner. This is a decision where you can listen to others, but you must make up your own mind. If you hold an adversarial view of an entire gender, you will have a difficult time building a relationship with a member of that gender. Story 15. Marriage is only a reflection of the relationship. Anyone telling you marriage is bad has unresolved issues in their own relationships, past or present. Weddings are another topic. You do not need to go into debt to celebrate a marriage. Story 16. I think they meant, do not marry the wrong person. If you actually meet someone you want to be with forever and have been together for many years already, it will not make much difference to either one of you. So if you want to make it official, you will approach it emotionally as well as logically and take proper precautions just in case. Story 17. I think those men are in horrible marriages. My wife is the best person ever. She is always helping me, telling me I'm handsome, worried about me, talks to me, gives me time to play video games, lets me focus when I work, and is overall just an amazing partner. We both share the chores and do what we can to ease each other's burden. Once you find someone that really embodies the word partner, then I think marriage is amazing. Story 18. If those men are in happy, healthy relationships, they are joking and provoking you. If they are not in a good relationship or are divorced, they are most likely giving you sound advice from their perspective. The least likely scenario is that your woman is no good and they are warning you. I have experienced all three. Story 19. Male, 35 years old, married for 5 years, together for 12 years, living together for 11 years, with children for 4 years. I do not have all the experience, but I am currently deeply involved with small children. Here is what I have experienced but was never told before getting married. Being married with children as a good family man can be exhausting. It can be difficult to make time for your spouse, let alone yourself. Your spouse may be aligned with you, but how they will be with children under pressure is uncertain, and they might change a bit. Having children means sleep deprivation, which will affect your marriage. It is hard to see this when you are single or married without children. The dynamics and finances change. People get older and more exhausted. It is difficult to gauge this when single or married without children. A married man with children puts himself last. This is the only way to do it correctly. Many men know this and follow it, but it is still exhausting. It takes a heavy amount of work daily to be in unison and alignment with a spouse, especially when children have kept you up, you are spending all your money on childcare, and you are tired. It is tough. I personally do not believe you should get married if you need a prenuptial agreement. The whole idea is for this to be a lifelong commitment. This is just my opinion. The most important thing is that you put God first, and your spouse puts God first. You will have a compass and a fighting chance. Best of luck. Story 20. Marriage is most likely the most expensive contract you will ever sign. Most people enter into it for the wrong reasons and get hurt. It should be approached with caution and only after discussing everything with your future spouse. Story 21. It's a risk, a big risk, and I'm not sure that it is worth it. There are many ways a marriage can go really bad. I look at it this way. What does inviting the government into your relationship accomplish? Story 22. People often talk about marriages that have problems. When things are going well, they do not tend to be a topic of conversation. I think the problem is that too many people get married for the sake of being married, when you should only do it if you know for a fact the person you have found is the one. How will you know? Well, from my experience, you will not need to ask. You will know it. I have been with my partner for just over 20 years, married for 17 of them, loving every minute so far. Story 23. I have seen enough men have their lives completely ruined by divorce to know it was not worth it for me. There is a reason many men advise against getting married. It is not a good idea. Staying single and childless has worked out very well for me. I am 46. I date casually most of the time. I am retired and living a very good life. Nearly every man I know my age who got married and had children is miserable and will be working until shortly before their funeral. Those who got divorced are even worse off if they are still living. Story 24. Only marry if you are 100% sure. The negative repercussions are severe if you make a poor decision. However, if you find the right person, it is very much worth it. Always have a prenuptial agreement. Story 25. When you do a cost analysis of marriage as a man, you realize everything is against you. You have nearly everything to lose and nothing to gain. If it's anything I've noticed, any genuinely happy man in a marriage is the exception, not the norm, and even they are not immune to divorce. For example, I have a house, 3 paid-off vehicles, a retirement account, a savings account, a stock account, peace at home, peace when I leave the house, and peace when I return home. I would give up all that because a woman convinced me to sign a legal document that gives me nothing in return, yet I lose 15+ years of my hard work that no one helped me obtain but myself. Hard pass. Story 26. Most marriages do not end in divorce. The median marriage lasts. Individuals who marry multiple times are skewing the statistics. Most people who get married do not divorce. Story 27. It varies. I'm married without a prenuptial agreement because I love my wife. I trust her with my whole being. She didn't wait at the finish line for me to win. She ran the race with me every step of the way. On the other side, I have seen my parents get divorced. My stepfather lost the house, custody, had to pay child support, alimony, and more. If you asked artificial intelligence to create a "don't get married ever" rant, it would be based on his experience. He is exactly the kind of person who would binge-watch those bald men over 40 who rant about how bad women are. I don't agree with the notion that men who say marriage is bad are toxic, because it is easy to dismiss men anytime they have a legitimate reason to say those things, especially if they have been treated unfairly in the courts. Story 28. Because marriage is not a hobby or a weekend activity. You get married only when you are certain, with concrete evidence, that you want to wake up next to that person for the rest of your life. Story 29. I am once divorced and remarried. I would not change a thing. I love my wife, and she is a great partner in life. Story 30. Those men were not happily married. Many people who have children will warn, do not have children. They are going through a difficult time. Story 31. Man here. Do what you wish and what your heart tells you. I married at 35, and the marriage lasted only 5 years. We simply did not know each other well enough. 20 years later, we are still great friends. Even if it had ended badly, I would not change it. It is easy for some people to become haters due to a bad experience, but I cannot see any reason to say do not do it. Story 32. I have never been married and do not plan to marry, but I do not see the problem with it. I think the real problem is people desperate for a life they were raised to believe they needed or they would be a failure. Go to college, meet your sweetheart, get a job, get married, buy a house, have kids. Do these steps in this amount of time or you are a failure. Many people get swept up in what they feel they have to do, marry the wrong person, and become deeply unhappy. I also know people who did not fall into the trap, dated the wrong people, did things in the wrong order, and are really happy. In short, if you do not know yourself and what you want, you will have trouble finding the right person and being happy. Then you might tell people, do not do what I did, but in an unhelpful way. Story 33. I think both men and women are still in the habit of marrying for the wrong reasons. Money, mutual friends, one or the other being fun to be around or party with, physical attraction, and so on. If you are not marrying your best friend, it probably will not last. Story 34. Marriage can be challenging for the person who earns more income. It is often more difficult for men who earn higher salaries because family courts tend to have biases against them. Story 35. I was in a long-term relationship, but we did not inform the government because we did not want to involve lawyers if we broke up. Also, we did not have children. I say it was because my spouse passed away. My only advice is if you get married, do it for a reason, not just because everyone else does. Story 36. For anyone who is wondering if getting married is right for them and worried about legal ramifications, I would talk to a couple of divorce lawyers just to get the lay of the land. Couldn't hurt. Story 37. I'm not saying do not get married, but you better be sure that she is the right person. Also, people change over time. The person you married may not be the same 10 years later. The important thing is, there is likely nothing you can do about it. You are signing a contract that is not easy to get out of and may be disadvantageous to you. This is why other men advise against getting married. I was recently married, so I may be a little biased, but currently, I have no desire to ever get married again. Story 38. Do not get married. Look at media and historical records from the past 10 years, including statistics, to see how many women become wealthy because of divorce. Consider the average child support payments in the United States. Alimony can potentially last forever unless the recipient gets remarried. Story 39. I have been married 34 years, but if I were single today, based only on what I am seeing, I would not get married. There is too much risk for a man if he is of any worth at all. Of course, I could be wrong. These are just my thoughts. Story 40. I usually hear this from men and women who have been divorced or men who never wanted to settle down. Story 41. Many times, getting married is overrated and ends up being quite expensive. I am not saying never get married, but make sure you have been in a long-term relationship first. Part of this is knowing the person because it seems that once you get married, the relationship can immediately become quite sour and very costly when there are things like real estate and credit involved. Story 42. I personally would not recommend it because it is difficult to get out of if you do end up getting divorced. But do what you feel is right. I was married to someone I would have stood the test of time with. She ended up changing her plans. Unfortunately, I am better off now, but the process of splitting and getting divorced, looking back, it would have been much easier to just act married without the legalities. You cannot possibly know for sure whether you will be with someone forever, no matter how serious you are going into the marriage. It is a risk you have to decide to take or not. Ultimately, it is your decision and no one else's. No one can tell you how it is going to turn out either. Story 43. If you choose the right partner, the marriage will be glorious. If you choose the wrong partner, the marriage will be terrible. Many people are poor at selecting partners. Story 44. Marry when you are okay with losing half your assets to that one person if things do not work out. Once I found that person, I was like, okay, it is time. Story 45. Men and women tell me not to get married. I am going to do what I want, but it seems like good advice, and I am glad older people have warned me about all the pitfalls of marriage. Story 46. What does being married grant you that love and commitment do not? If your answer is tax benefits, then it is a financial decision. This means prenuptial and postnuptial agreements should be considered as financial contracts. Anything else is simply a promise between two people and does not require any formal arrangement. Story 47. Men do not gain anything, other than responsibility, from marriage. Marriage is about providing a stable household for children. It exists to serve a function, not just as the next step in a relationship. There is not much for you as an individual to gain, and there is a lot of potential to lose what you have or might have during the marriage. Most marriages, like relationships, will fail and end. You are putting yourself in a precarious situation where you have almost nothing to gain, and you are likely doing it just because it is the traditional thing you are expected to do. Story 48. Do not get married in a Western country. I wish I did not have to say that, but it is the reality. The risks of facing serious difficulties in family court are too high. Story 49. I have been told the same. After being devastated and almost losing my house to a woman I had not married but had expected to commit to, I agree. Story 50. If 50% of marriages fail, let's consider those who remain married. How many are happy, faithful, or still living together? Just because they do not file divorce papers does not mean they are happy or content. I am not against marriage, although I believe few people take the commitment as seriously as the vows they make. For that reason, they are not as selective as they otherwise would be. I also believe that you can know a person or even live with someone for a very long time without truly knowing them. This is why I also believe in divorce. The butterflies will mutually fade for all but a very small percentage of couples. I see this as a natural progression in a relationship. Those butterflies may be gone, but they should be replaced with greater understanding, respect, and a deeper sense of love for your spouse that will carry you through your years together. Story 51. It is downright unusual how common and universal those comments are. In over 30 years of my life, not once have I witnessed a married man recommend marriage without his wife present. However, if you bring up the topic with them alone, the first thing they say is, don't. Story 52. Half of marriages end in divorce. Half of the remaining marriages are unhappy and only stay intact out of necessity or fear. In most marriages that fail, if the man is the higher earner, post-divorce life involves a financial burden that makes building an independent life even more challenging. This is not the case for most post-divorce women, with very few exceptions. The benefits partners are supposed to gain from marriage can be obtained in a committed monogamous relationship and powers of attorney. That reduces marriage to a tripartite agreement between you, your partner, and the state. Having the state involved in your relationship is a bad idea, as they get the final say on post-termination outcomes. That is a difficult backdrop against which to defend the institution from a typical man's perspective, viewing a typical outcome from a marriage with typical roles. Story 53. I know 3 married couples, and they are all one secret away from a fight in the street. It seems like a lot of risk for minimal gain, with the divorce rate being near 50%. Story 54. Listen to them. It is not worth the pain and suffering. You are never going to be right. You will never be enough. No one will care because it will always be your fault regardless. Story 55. 50% of marriages fail. You are not the same person in your 30s as you are in your 50s or 60s, nor should you be. Others may change as well, and you could grow apart. States have different divorce laws, which may negatively affect your finances. Divorce attorneys, the process, and relationship issues can turn the best people into the worst. There are advantages such as tax benefits, financial considerations, hospital visit rights, and security, especially if children are involved. I do not think I will get married again. I have been divorced for 2 years. Story 56. I have now been married twice. The first time I was with her for 19 years, married for 17. We had 2 wonderful kids. She was a narcissist and likely had borderline personality disorder. She was verbally and emotionally abusive most of that time. She was also an alcoholic who, by the end, was drinking several gallons of vodka a week. Long story short, she wouldn't get help and eventually passed away from cirrhosis while still in her 30s. She left me a single dad to 2 young kids, aged 8 and 10 at the time. About 6 years later, I reconnected with a woman I knew from college who was recently divorced and had 1 child. Sparks flew and we got married. For 4 years, all she talked about was how we were soulmates, together forever, and that I would never get rid of her. Those were great 4 years, and I was really happy. Then suddenly, after our 4-year anniversary trip, it was like a switch flipped. She wouldn't have sex and wouldn't spend much time with me. A few months later, she said she was unhappy and wanted to split. There was no desire for therapy or trying to work it out. I'm still not sure what happened, but I have strong suspicions. It was not an affair as we were rarely apart, and as far as I know, she isn't with anyone now. But who really knows? Now I'm single again. My kids are getting ready to move out on their own soon. I have made a promise to myself to never get married again or even live with someone. So what is my point after all that? I don't recommend marriage. It's great when you find the one, but I'm not sure you can ever be certain they are. Honestly, I mostly blame myself. I think I just suck at picking who I should be with and staying way past when I should leave. If it works out for you, that's great. But if I could talk to my younger self, I'd steer myself way clear. I think it's probably rare or a real gamble to find someone you can truly love and like for your whole life. Story 57. Take their advice. I never listened to them. These days, getting divorced seems like a rite of passage. Of all the weddings I have attended over the years, maybe 2% are still together, and I have been to quite a few. Story 58. Most men are hurt. Most women are hurt. Internet relationship advice does not mean anything like half the comments suggest. I made a post earlier and everyone went on a witch hunt about the girl I referred to. I would not stress the comments about relationships too much because it is your relationship, not theirs. Story 59. The length of time that some women can maintain a false front to take advantage of you is years. So, get married if you feel you have the right person to do so. But do not forget to protect yourself from adverse situations. Story 60. I do not believe in marriage, so I do not care about it. If you want to do it, go ahead and have fun with that. It is not for me or my partner. Story 61. I enjoyed my marriage for approximately 35 years. It seems to be over now, but I am working on it because I would like to stay married. Story 62. Married twice, divorced once. Even after divorce, I would never tell anyone not to get married. Their presumably negative experiences are not guaranteed to be your experiences. Story 63. People who say that you should not get married either married the wrong person or were bad at marriage. Marriage is fine when you have a good partner. Make good choices and you will go far. Story 64. Men who do not want to get married themselves are fine. Not everyone wants to, including women. Some people like having their own identity and space, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think those men are different from the ones who go around preaching that you should not get married. People who are so obsessed with it that they feel compelled to try to impose it on others are misogynists or, if they are women, misandrists. Story 65. I think they're right, but maybe not for the right reasons. Even casual conversations about marriage with women have shown me that the majority are only thinking about the wedding and nothing that comes after. I firmly believe the reason for that is so they can show off on social media. Then there's the matter of prenuptial agreements. They often get offended by the mere mention. They either refuse to understand that it's a useless piece of paper unless you divorce, or they literally cannot comprehend. Either position is a deal breaker. Speaking of divorce, women don't seem to want to acknowledge the reality that about 56% of marriages end in divorce. The odds are not in our favor, which is all the more reason for a prenuptial agreement that protects her from me judicially attacking her just as much as it protects me from judicial attacks by her. Her refusal to accept one makes me feel like there is malicious intent to harm me as much as possible if either of us files for divorce before we are even married. Furthermore, outside of a tax break, marriage does not provide anything that being a couple does not. It is not even a promise to your partner. It is a contract from the government, with severe penalties for you even if your partner breaks the rules. Knowing all this, why would I ever want to marry someone? Story 66. Statistically, marriage is unlikely to work out. What more do you want? Even based on that, in marriages that do not end in divorce, more than 50% of those people are unhappy. Story 67. I wouldn't do it again. It doesn't mean I'm not relatively happy. It just means that, in my humble opinion, men don't really change over time, but women change. Hormones have the kids, have the home, have the life. They don't need to keep dating or keep trying, whereas men are told that unless they are literally perfect, they won't get any in the bedroom. Story 68. All I know is that I was a child in a man's body before my wife came along, and now I'm finally a man in a man's body. Marriage helps you grow into a better person if you let it. Story 69. It's projection and passive self-victimization. Projection because these men in your surroundings have bad marriages and therefore think all marriages are bad. Passive self-victimization because they complain about their marriages, which they are themselves a part of. In marriage, as in most relationships, you get what you give. If you give little, you'll get little. These men probably give little. Alternatively, it's just male nonsense talk. A few of my friends used to say this too, so much that I grew exceptionally tired of them and started asking real questions to find out if they meant it or not. I asked them if marriage is so bad. Did they regret getting married? Was it really such a bad choice? Are their wives really so bad? Why would they say such things if they themselves are part of their marriage? If it's so bad, why don't they change it? You get the gist. These friends quickly retracted their words when I started asking, assuring me that they surely love their wives and regret nothing. They said their anti-marriage talk is just a way to release some relational frustration safely within our friendship. I told them I understood, but they needed to stop whining because it made them seem ungrateful. They made their choice and they love their wives still, so they need to be quiet and speak positively about them. Most importantly, they should not confuse and hurt me by saying being single is best when I personally hate it and would love having a wife. Luckily, they heard me, and I seldom hear them say such things anymore. Story 70. People can change their mind at the drop of a hat. I have seen long-term marriage work in my family, and I tried to get married and have kids with all the relationships I have had, but it has not worked out for me. That is the scariest part for me. A gradual change over time, then suddenly life changes. Sure, change is inevitable. But watching an uncle's 25-year marriage go down the drain because his wife became unemployed and verbally abusive is hard. Now he is 50 years old, living in an apartment without a job because of depression. Seeing both sides makes me just want to remain single. Good relationships and bad relationships have one thing in common. They take work. No thanks. Story 71. This is partly a social convention related to the idea that heterosexual couples do not seem to like each other. I also think that older generations, such as Generation X and earlier, had a higher chance of ending up with someone they did not actually like because premarital sex and living together were strongly disapproved of. People today are much more likely to live together before getting married, giving them a chance to find out if their prospective spouse is unpleasant, immature, or otherwise incompatible. Story 72. Once you understand, are you ready to seriously consider getting married? Otherwise, just date and gain more life experience. Story 73. It depends on where you live and how well you know your potential spouse. If you live in a country where the laws heavily favor a specific gender in the case of divorce, such as the United States of America, I would avoid it unless you are completely certain that such a situation will not occur. Story 74. After I realized that I was terrible with women, I decided the only way I would get married was if loneliness became more important than peace. Now I am 54, and there are not many women in the world who would even look at me. After 15 years, there is no chance I would have the self-confidence to approach anyone. I would say be careful. Wait too long and you might end up alone. Story 75. Sounds like they either married the wrong person or were not mature enough for that kind of commitment. I have been married for 5 years, and it is pretty great, to be honest. She is my best friend. We have 2 great kids, are building our lives and home together, and still have fun. Getting married to her was the best thing I have ever done. Story 76. If you choose your spouse well, it will be wonderful for you. If you do not, you may advise younger people not to marry. Story 77. This trope likely comes from many people being hurt because they did not understand what they were getting into with their partner. Marriage is risky. There is a real possibility that you could lose everything: your wealth, possessions, passion, and to some extent, your soul. Yet, there is also the possibility that you will have a lifelong partnership, friend, ally, and lover. What is the difference? I do not know. It seems different for each relationship, and therein lies the challenge. Story 78. It is the combination of issues at all stages of marriage. The loss of potential before marriage, the difficulty and loss of idealization during marriage, and the opposing forces of a prior loved one, loss, and the challenging recovery with divorce. When you look at it through the lens of insight and warning, rather than hostility and fault-finding, it makes sense and should be said. The difference lies in delivery and demeanor, rather than the need or quality of the information. Overall, the statements are fine and people are more affected by how it is said versus what is said. Also, it is important to note the wisdom of the crowd and some facts. If they align, they should be heeded. Just as women discuss and share to be both safe and secure regarding marriage and relationships, it would be a significant loss for men not to do the same. Story 79. For many generations, people got married to those they liked and were infatuated with, without considering all the compatibilities and factors involved in living with someone for life, such as finances, habits, ideals, morals, and children. The common belief is it will never work because it is destined to be doomed. When in reality, the missing part is that they were not selective enough about certain things that objectively make life easier. They did not consider all these factors and assumed, well, that is just marriage. No, that is wrong because they left out much of what is truly involved. Story 80. I feel like this is something men routinely say to each other without giving it much thought, especially single men who cannot find a wife. They say things like, man, it's not worth getting married. Being stuck with the same woman all your life. She will just weigh you down. The fact is, I am not sure I would still be here if it were not for my wife. We have been married for over 3 decades. Find someone you are intellectually and emotionally compatible with, someone you view as a best friend who happens to be female. Have the tough conversations with them while dating to determine you are truly on the same page on big topics like what you want out of a relationship, what you want out of life, and how you expect a spouse to act. Marry them for who they are, not because your mother wants grandchildren or all your friends are doing it. Finally, be sure both of your expectations from each other and your marriage are realistic. Story 81. I will not get married again, but if I were younger, I would consider it. That said, my gut reaction is do not get married. If you do, make sure your values align, especially when it comes to children, finances, politics, and career ambitions. Make sure you are both okay with each other when neither of you is putting a lot of energy into the relationship. This will almost inevitably happen at times. It is easy to stay in a relationship when you are going out and having fun. It is much harder when you are trying to decide where to eat for the 100th time or sitting down to eat a meal you have eaten many times before. Make sure they respond positively to your attempts to bring energy into the relationship. This does not mean they always agree, but you will become exhausted with someone who shuts your energy down. If they snap, run away. Do not marry someone who is not independently happy or cannot make their own happiness at least a decent part of the time. Most importantly, do not marry someone if your life alone is more satisfying than your life with them. Story 82. It makes me think that they are not someone to take seriously because they make general statements based on their poor decisions. Story 83. Some women are worth it. Unfortunately, even long-term dating will not reveal whether she is worth it or not. Both partners need to prepare to give more than they receive. Story 84. People are very quick to give advice to others about their failures. Whether it is marriage, moving for a job, buying an investment property, a business, or anything else. They assume that because they did not succeed or were unhappy, everyone else will be the same. Story 85. I think these are people who clearly failed to mature to the point they truly knew themselves and what they wanted before taking such a big step in life. Society has turned into a big rush to complete the checklists of life as fast as possible for some. Get a degree, get married, have children, and so on. My partner and I have talked a lot about how many people we know seem to be just doing these things because they think they are supposed to and do not realize their lives are their own to choose what to do with. We are happy and content with our 5 cats and each other. And I will stand beside this woman until our last days on earth, because she and I both know exactly what we truly want. It is each other. Story 86. Marriage can be fantastic. But do not get married without thinking it through. Make sure you trust her, you love her, and you are both in it for the long haul. Story 87. Women can leave for any reason, and that is enough not to get married. You lose so much and end up with so much heartache and pain that it ruins future relationships. Story 88. Don't get married unless you are truly sure that she is a worthwhile and trustworthy partner. You may have read that to mean, unless you really love her. No, that is not what I am saying. Obviously, you should love her. If you do not, then there is nothing to talk about. But a successful lifelong partnership takes much more than love. Love is absolutely not all you need. Story 89. Marriage is a more legally binding form of relationship. If you cannot make your relationship work, making it legally binding is the worst decision you can make. If your relationship works, getting married will give you more protections and some rights, especially as you get older or have children. Many people do not understand this and marry as if they were casually dating. This contributes to a 50% divorce rate, which increases for second and third marriages because some people never learn. Story 90. Marriage is not the problem. Poor planning is. I cannot stress how crucial it is to get a cohabitation or prenuptial agreement. Yes, I know they are not bulletproof, but I have to tell you, as someone who is now trying to get a divorce and did not get a prenuptial agreement, it has been nothing short of brutal. You would not go skydiving without a parachute. Marriage is no different. Story 91. Choose well. Have some children. Be a great father, as men have been since the beginning of time. Build something for the future. Do not waste your life on nonsense. Let me repeat step 1, choose well. Do not marry someone with a complicated past before meeting you. Story 92. Probably good advice. Marriage as an institution really is not a net positive for most men over the long haul, either psychologically or financially. There are exceptions, but not many. It is a roll of loaded dice where the odds are against you. Story 93. Don't get married to the wrong person. I know fantastic married couples who complement each other and are living in marital bliss. I know others who are miserable. It can be hard to figure that out with limited experience, and honestly, I think the happiest couples just got lucky. Also, keep in mind the problem might be you. For various reasons, I have decided I am just not husband material unless I stumble upon the most tolerant, understanding, easygoing woman who ever walked the earth, which I rate as extremely unlikely. Story 94. What you should take away from these comments is to be careful about who you decide to commit your life to. Story 95. What they mean is do not rush into marriage, which 50% of people do, and this is why half get divorced. I would not marry someone until I knew them for a minimum of 5 years. Story 96. Getting married may not be suitable for everyone. Consult your doctor to determine if getting married is right for you. Do not get married if you are pregnant, planning to become pregnant, or taking angiotensin-converting enzyme inhibitors. Story 97. People love to offer advice based on their own experience and path. Relationships are often on very extreme ends of a pendulum. You have many people scorned by bitter ends and poor choices, and others who tend to be less frequent who are incredibly happy in their relationship. You, being unmarried, are most likely surrounded by more men who are either unmarried as well or are divorced. This tendency explains the common advice of avoiding marriage because they have had negative experiences. When you are happily married, you tend to have more happily married friends, and you will find that the advice is different in those scenarios. Your environment plays a huge part in the types of advice you receive frequently. Is it all wrong? No. Some of it is probably solid advice. Is some of it rubbish? Absolutely. It is advice offered as generalized information that is more biased because of the person's intimate experiences. I got divorced after a 16-year marriage. I am still friends with my ex-wife. I am about to get married again at 45 years old next summer to a woman I have been with for 6 years. I have heard a wide range of advice from other men my age. I take it for what it is worth for me while considering the source. My advice for you. I do not know your age, situation, or history of your relationship. If you are in your 20s, give yourself and your significant other time to grow and experience life before getting married. If you have been with your significant other less than 2 years, give it a little more time to evolve before getting married. If you live separately, live together if you can before getting married. Ultimately, do what makes you and your significant other happy. It is a cliché, but we truly only live once. Experience is the best teacher, so fill your life with experiences. Worst case, you falter and learn something. Best case, you are happy and married. Both scenarios are worth the effort. Story 98. It is not a very masculine response to the dating scene and divorce laws. You should marry despite these challenges once you have found someone trustworthy. Consider taking reasonable precautions, such as a prenuptial agreement. Do not let the unfortunate state of society dictate your life. Instead, shape your life as you see fit. Listen to these men, but do not follow everything they say as if it is infallible. Story 99. There are circumstances in which being married is a good thing. However, they are extremely rare. In 80% of cases, I would say avoid marriage. Story 100. I've been happily married for 15 years. I wouldn't have it any other way. Do not marry unless you are both ready. Marriage is about communication. If you can successfully communicate about and resolve disagreements, it will probably work out. It is also about mutual respect and commitment, and it certainly helps to have commonly held foundational beliefs about the purpose and meaning of marriage. Story 101. That usually comes from toxic men who cannot manage a decent relationship. I grew up listening to my dad harp on that. He has, I think, 3 divorces. But then, when I got to my early 20s and was not seriously dating, he started nagging me to get married and have children. And the whole nagging about grandchildren and the idiotic passing the family name down nonsense. Take your time. Find a good woman who wants to be with you and treats you well, whose beliefs and goals align with yours. Both should be willing to do the work to keep the marriage solid. Do not marry for sex. That will come with a good relationship. Story 102. As a divorced man, I think the real issue is that most of us marry the wrong person for the wrong reasons. Not that they are bad people or that we are, just that we chose before we should have. In my case, I have an amazing son, so I will never regret getting married. However, we should have separated earlier for both of our happiness. Story 103. Because this country's laws are set up to give everything to women and leave the man, who in most cases single-handedly created all the wealth, with nothing. There is nothing you can do about it. The courts will give women the children 9 times out of 10, just because they want the children to be raised poorly by a single mother, which funnels them directly back into the system. Story 104. You only have one life to live, so do what makes you happy. If you want to get married, then get married. If you do not want to get married, then do not. What makes one person happy does not make someone else happy. Story 105. Do you practice your faith regularly? If the answer is no, then do not waste the time, effort, and money. Love is love. No legal papers are required. Story 106. Marriage is not bad. Finding the right person can be hard, though. You need to properly vet the person you are thinking of marrying. Like others have said, consider values, love language, and connection. You also need to ensure you have healthy communication first, be able to regulate your own emotions, manage your own home, and not expect someone else to do it. Remember, you cannot fix what you do not talk about. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.